711 years after the birth of Christ, the world ends and begins on the edge of a cliff. Below, the river Sella roars like distant battle drums. Above, a knot of fugitives, barely 600 souls, huddle round a war-beaten noble whose name will soon be carved into the bedrock of Europe. They have lost everything: cities, churches, the very language of their childhood now replaced by the lilting Arabic commands of new masters. Yet in this vertical wilderness of limestone and blizzard, they still possess the one coin that cannot be stolen: refusal. Tonight, that refusal will be tested. Was this a kingdom, a last breath of a dying world, or the first heartbeat of another? Stay, because the answer will redraw the map of continents, send pilgrims by the thousands across freezing mountain passes, and invent, centuries before Magna Carta, the radical notion that a king may not spend a single coin without the permission of those who sweat to earn it. This is the forgotten epic of Iberia's mountain kings. Asturias, León and Navarre, realms so tenacious that even their ruins refuse to lie down. Modern Spain glitters with the cliches of flamenco and sun-drenched beaches. Peel back that glossy skin and you will find a spine of granite, mountains that once echoed with Gothic Latin, with Basque older than history, with Arabic, poetry, and Hebrew commerce. Out of that crucible came three kingdoms so ahead of their time that their parliaments, their art, their very identity still pulse inside Europe's veins, though we have forgotten their names. Tonight, we resurrect them. In the year 711, a Berber general named Al-Arik, giving his name forever to Gibraltar, Jabal al-Arik, the mountain of Arik, landed with no more men than you could fit into a modern football stadium. Within 3 summers, Visigothic Hispania, heir to Rome's western glory, folded like parchment in rain. Cities that had once legislated in Latin surrendered their gates, their wives, their bishops. Toledo, the royal city, saw its last king, Roderick, vanish in the marshes of Guadalete. The chronicler writes, "And the churches were made mosques, and the bells were broken, and the tongue of Ishmael sounded over the land. Yet every empire, however swift its hooves, meets a wall it cannot leap. For the Arab and Berber conquerors, that wall was not stone but weather. Freezing mists, chest-high snow, forests so dense that sunlight fell only in coins. The Cantabrian Massif, Europe's final fortress. Into this natural labyrinth crawled the leftovers of a fallen world. Visigothic counts in moth-eaten purple, tonsured priests clutching codices, shepherd clans whose dialect predated Rome. Among them, a man whose pedigree is debated by every modern thesis, but whose legend needs no footnote. Pelagius, Pelayo in the Asturian tongue. Was he a Gothic duke of royal blood, a local chieftain who knew every goat path? Truth, he was both, and neither. He was the first to understand that geography itself could be a weapon. He married the Highland clans to the refugee aristocrats, forging a polity that survived because it could vanish into cloud forest at a trumpet's blast. The emir in Cordoba, busy minting gold dinars and importing fruit trees from Damascus, dismissed the Asturian nuisance as 30 barbarians upon a mountain. He dispatched a governor named Alcama with the casual instruction, teach them taxes. Alcama marched up the Roman road from León. Pelagius retreated until the valley narrowed to a throat called Covadonga. There he turned. Year 722. The Muslim chronicle calls it a skirmish of no account. The Asturian chronicle calls it where angels fought. Both are right. The numbers were minuscule, the symbolism tectonic. For the first time on Iberian soil, the caliphal tide recoiled. Pelagius was acclaimed princeps, prince, not because parchment crowns were handy, but because men needed a story larger than hunger. Survival is a crude craft. Expansion is an art. Pelagius's son, Favila, was reportedly torn apart by a bear. An anecdote so medieval it feels fictional, yet the tombstone exists in Covadonga's church, a silent reminder that politics in Asturias came with claws. The crown passed to Alfonso, son-in-law, a man who understood that kingdoms are not measured in acres but in absence of enemies. So he engineered absence by depopulating it. Alfonso I, the Catholic, led lightning columns south of the Duero. Villages were evacuated, granaries torched, olive groves uprooted. The land between Asturias and the Caliphate became the desert of the Duero, an ecological wound, yes, but a moat of thorns. For 50 years, wolves outnumbered warriors between Zamora and Simancas. Asturias, shielded by its own devastation, incubated. Enter Alfonso II, the chaste. who reigned 51 winters, an eternity in the Middle Ages. He moved the capital to Oviedo and built not with timber and desperation, but with masons, pigments, barrel vaults. Pre-Romanesque Asturian architecture, elegant, austere, defiant, announced, "We are not refugees, we are heirs." And to prove it, he staged a miracle. Year 813, a hermit named Pelagius sees strange lights over the Libradon forest. Bishop Theodemir arrives, shovel in hand. They unearth a tomb, a scallop shell carved into stone. The local abbot declares, "Behold James, son of Zebedee, apostle of Christ." Whether the body was authentic is immaterial. The discovery was geopolitical poetry. The shrine of Santiago, Saint James, now lay in Asturian territory. Pilgrims from Gaul, Saxony, Lombardy began walking, purses full of silver, news, gunpowder, ideas. Asturias was no longer the edge of the world. It was its crossroads. Armed now with ideology, neo-Gothic restoration, and with pilgrimage revenue, Alfonso III the Great pushes south again. Porto, Coimbra, Zamora, Simancas, each repopulated with farmers' promised land and laws. Castles sprout on every ridge, square keeps, stone statements that read, "We intend to stay." The year is 910. Alfonso III, hair silvered, dictates the Chronicle of Albelda, stitching Visigothic kings to his own lineage, crafting the legal fiction that every subsequent Christian monarch on the peninsula will invoke. This is not conquest. This is reclamation. But success fractures as often as failure. Alfonso III is forced to abdicate by his own sons, Garcia, Ordoño, Fruela, who split the realm, Asturias, Galicia, León. The act seems suicidal, yet it births new dynamism. Garcia's León sits on the fertile plateau. Its language, Latin tinged with Basque and Arabic, will become Castilian Spanish. Its capital, León, houses a court where poetry is recited to lute accompaniment, while just outside the gates, frontier horsemen practice lance charges against leather dummies stuffed with Moorish armor. 11th century. The Caliphate of Cordoba implodes into petty kingdoms, taifas, rich, soft, and ripe for plucking. Ferdinand I of León Castile exacts parias, protection money, gold dinars that fund cathedrals and mercenaries alike. His son, Alfonso VI, dreams bigger. Year 1085. After a year-long siege, Toledo, ancient capital of the Visigoths, falls. The psychological shockwave travels Christendom. Jerusalem may be lost, but here, in Hispania, the cross advances. Yet Leon's greatest triumph is not military. Year 1188. Alfonso Nyack, short of cash for war, summons the Cortes. For the first time in Europe, commoners, procuradores, sit beside bishops and counts. They enact the decreta, no tax without consent, no imprisonment without trial, homes inviolate. A king who breaks the pact may be declared tyrant. UNESCO calls it the oldest documentary evidence of parliamentary Europe. The purple lion has learned to roar through parchment. But León is not alone in the highlands. Navarre, land of Basque shepherds and iron valleys, has survived by flexibility. In the year 824, Inigo Arista unites hill clans, not against Islam per se, but against anyone, Frank, Arab, or emir, who denies them sovereignty. His heir, Sancho the Great, rules by the sword and by the marriage bed. Aragon, Castile, Rioja, even bits of Gascony swear him fealty. He is Rex Ibericus, king of Iberia, yet on his deathbed he commits the sin that will haunt his people for 5 centuries, partition. Castile and Aragon, his own creations, will grow into the giants that devour their maker. Navarre endures, through French dynasties, through civil wars between the boroughs of Pamplona, through the traumatic French invasion of 1276 that burns the Navarrete quarter to ash. Its secret? The fueros, customary laws so entrenched that every king must swear, "I will die before I break them." They protect Basque language Jewish aljamas, even the rights of women to inherit salt pans and sheep flocks. Navarre becomes a medieval Switzerland, small, multilingual, stubbornly free. But history's wheel keeps turning. 1230. Ferdinand III of Castile inherits León through his mother. The crowns fuse. Castile the sword, León the law. Navarre, squeezed between, clings on until 1510 when Castilian artillery finally breaches Pamplona's walls. The kingdoms vanish, yet their DNA persists. The Cortes model spreads to England, to the Netherlands, to the Americas. Santiago's scallop becomes the symbol of pilgrimage for 1 billion Catholics. The purple lion still snarls on Spain's coat of arms, and every Spanish parliament still opens with a medieval oath. Under the law, with the people, for the realm. Stand today on the windswept heights of Covadonga, and you will hear two sounds: the rustle of eucalyptus and the echo of a trumpet that was blown 12 centuries ago. The kingdoms of Asturias, León, Navarre, names that textbooks compress into a footnote, were the laboratories in which Europe invented itself. They forged the idea that a ruler's legitimacy rests not on divine whim but on contract. They proved that culture can bloom where armies march. They gave the world a vocabulary: Cortes, fueros, pilgrimage, university. History is not a straight line. It is a palimpsest, parchment scraped and rewritten. Yet under the bright ink of today's nations, the faded words still whisper: law before kings, mountains before empires, and a spark, if tended, can outshine the sun.